Hello, welcome to this week's episode of Talking Skritt. I'm your host, John, better known as Dare on Yuxben. We have a fantastic show for you. ArcDPS disables its build templates, and we do know about the other thing. I know it just happened. If you're watching this live, we'll definitely be talking about that. The shadow of the MAAD King has arrived, and optimism appears about fractals and strike missions, and much more. But first, let me introduce you to my fellow host this week. He is a moderator over at MMO Champion and host of Zero to Hero on this very channel, and also Vote to Kick. He wanted to see what was buried in this year's Halloween update, but what does he actually think about it? Say hello to Jim.
We get a shield that can only be described as the lid of Dracula's coffin. I'm happy.
Yeah, it looks sweet. But we'll have to tell you how to get that. But, yeah. So, it is just us two going strong. You know how it is. Trying to organize people.
The original.
Every once in a while.
The remaining two original cast members.
Yeah.
We can do
and
this.
And we have one of the original ones in chat. But anyway, wouldn't that be crazy if Royby just showed up? Holy crap.
Just popped into chat, yeah.
Well, we did do that for what? Our 200 special. We did this one just BSing.
The drinking and the talking, yeah.
Oh, yeah, there was drinking. Anyway, as we waffle on, let us jump right into it. So, it is that time of season. Shadow of the MAAD King has arrived, dropped on past Tuesday, October 15th. Do remember, it is going till November 5th. And just like last year, some of the things to do, you can visit the vendors and participate in MAAD King's Says and Lion's Arch, also the MAAD King's Clock Tower, MAAD King's Labyrinth, which is kind of like the open world map, MAAD King's Raceway, Ascent to Madness, Reaper's Rumble, and Lunatic Inquisition, which those last two are kind of like little fun PvP game modes. But do note, players without access to Lion's Arch, so if you have a free-to-play account, you can't, what is it, 35's to get into, no. You have to be 30 to get into Lion's Arch, but like 70 to get into War v World or something. I forget basically if you can't get the Lion's Arch, fear not. You can travel to the MAAD Realm. Hey! From these locations outside each starting city's main gate. So the village of Shaymore in Queensdale, the village of Smokestead in the Plains of Ashford, Snow Lord's Gate in the Wayfarer Foothills, the village of Astoria in Caledon Forest, and Sorendra in Metrica Province. And just like previous years, haunted doors will appear in Keswick's Hills and Gendarme Fields throughout the event. Basically interact with the doors for trick-or-treat, loot, and be some mobs. I mean,
stuff.
I guess before we get into all the new goodies, because there's all the stuff I think from previous years, except for, and I'm still a little bit bummed about this, I think I say it every year, we don't have previous PvE stories like the rise of the Bloody Prince and stuff, the little instances which might be along the same lines as the issues that they had with SAB and stuff like that, but hopefully one day we'll get them.
The last time those existed, I didn't have the chance to finish it.
Ooh.
Yeah, I was kind of sad about that, but oh well, it happens. I'm sure it'll come back eventually. Honestly, I'm more in, I'm actually really interested in getting into a lot of Halloween stuff this year, primarily for the new skins.
Yeah, they do look nice.
I didn't want to steal your transition from you.
Oh, well, I mean, and like I said, we usually don't show the previous year's stuff. I mean, you can always go back to our other, or, there's loads of stuff if you're maybe new to the game. There's probably loads of stuff to go after. Pretty much everything tends to revolve around candy corn and turning into other stuff. And there are a couple recipes, but that's been like year one stuff. But yeah, some of the new stuff for our veteran players. At first, I want to give credit to on Reddit. The video was posted by Majestic Noodle and also their page on YouTube, Majestic Noodle. So definitely check that out. I have kind of pieced it apart so you can easily see it, but You don't like
Oh, that
you like the name?
username. That username is fantastic.
And someone rings my doorbell. What the?
Okay, if you just want to start the roll, I can.
Well, no, I got someone's here trying to keep my dogs quiet, so they'll hopefully.
Okay.
But if you want to talk about it so I can mute myself, I'll still try to display the things in a.
As far as I can tell, all of these are similar to the. They're all the same models as the Ascalon Royal ones. The ones that glow blue in night maps, but instead they're orange and on fire, which honestly, since it doesn't change all the time, I kind of prefer these better because you have a constant particle effect. Like honestly, the Royal Ascalonian Greatsword, I would love to use just that without the blue glow effect on it, because I think that one looks amazing. I like the fact that the fire particle effects disappear when the weapon is sheathed, so they actually have some work done on the particle effects there. And having these as just kind of a different look for the weapon is pretty nice. Because I don't.
Yeah, and I think that I don't know if it was a actual reasoning behind it, but I kind of like the mentality of, because the Ascalon, like you're saying, the Ascalonian dungeon weapons, they look normal, but at night time scenes, they glow. But Halloween tends, like, all the runes being nighttime affected. I'm gonna mute again if you want to keep talking, but I just noticed that, as I don't know if it's legit, but okay.
I'm sorry. Give me a minute. Okay. Yeah, ArenaNet does like fire, and I don't have a problem with that. I really don't. Oh, Deo, click through to the last two. That's the great sword and the shield. We'll talk about those. Oh, those are good looking. Because that's content right there. The great sword and the shield. That's content. I don't. Well, it's not me. That's Deo. 2Q. My dog is somewhere in the living room, probably with my wife as she plays Fire Emblem. I'm not sure I dig the skull on the shield, but then again, I haven't been a huge fan of skull aesthetics on any of my characters. But I guess, Mad King weapons. I know Ajax is stronger than all of Greece. But I'm just happy. Like, I know there will probably be some people complaining about basically reskins. Do you like how they revamped the collection system with the festivals tab now? Yes. Yeah, having that, I accidentally clicked into the historical collection section with festival stuff and I was confused briefly. But the festivals tab is, I love the collection system, but they need a better organization than a 2-tier accordion list. There's too many achievements and too many collections. They need to redesign that entire thing. Oh, wait, he's back. And so he's back from outer space.
So, are we still talking about all of them, or?
I didn't move on to the great sword and the shield yet because I wanted to wait for you to come back.
Okay. Did you say how to obtain the Royal Flame weapons and stuff?
No, because I honestly haven't even looked into getting it, and I wasn't feeling comfortable doing that from the notes.
Oh, okay. Well, there's actually a couple ways to get it. For the Royal Flame weapons, which are on the far left there, you can get it. You can get one offer from the achievement Mercy of the Mad King, which is basically opening 1,000 trick or treat bags. Which, honestly, if you're going after all this other stuff, you're probably going to be doing anyway. Especially when we talk about later one of the topics of the actual loot table. But also you can get them from trick or treat bags in general. So if you're on the way of opening up 1,000, you can get multiple, since you probably want more than one. Also, bag of trick-or-treat bags, which is just basically 10 trick-or-treat bags in a bundle. So, not surprising there. It's just, but you get that from the Eve of the Mad King achievement, which is repeatable, which is basically doing the daily tab, like doing your daily Halloween specific achievements. And once you do five times, you get basically 10 trick-or-treat bags on top of that. And I think a lot of them do give you trick-or-treat bags anyway, so it's once again farming for that 1,000 trick-or-treat bags. So
That's not hard. Like I did suboptimal farming probably in the labyrinth, and it was a little over 300 bags in like an hour and a half.
And lastly, the other way is the Evan Nashblade trick-or-treat bag, which you are guaranteed to get every time you open a Black Lion chest.
Oh boy.
So,
Crack open them Black Lion chests.
Yep. But yeah, so yeah, and I like the look of them. They're interesting. Like I said last week, I was hoping, wasn't confident in, but I was hoping that since they looked like a basically utilizing the base skin of the, I guess, half of the Ascalon Catacomb one, that maybe there was like you had to go back into the dungeon and like do stuff and then turn it into like a nighttime
to candy cornify it is what you said.
Yeah. I was hopeful for that. Was I expecting it? Maybe next year? Come on, ANet. Give us some dungeon love.
Hey, they did. A little bit.
Did?
Yeah, for the Great Sword and the Shield.
Oh. Is that some of the stuff? Okay.
Yeah, each one of them requires a dungeon path.
Oh, all right. Well, we'll get to that in a second, but you could see next to the Royal Flame weapons, the little green thing around the guy's neck is the Ghostly Racing Scarf. You can get that from an achievement, which is rewarded from the achievement Demon of a Drifter, which is complete a lap of the Roll into Madness race event or time trial in Mad King's Raceway within the extreme challenge time, which is 60 seconds or less. Which I know a lot of people are saying how it's difficult. I think people brought that up last year of like the whole drifting thing. Makes it a tough mechanic, especially if you're new to it. It definitely takes practice.
Yep.
But it's also purchasable from a vendor for 30 candy corn cobs, which maybe doesn't sound like a lot, but you got to remember 1 candy corn cob is equal to 1,000 candy corns. So you're basically having to get 30,000 candy corn alone, which, hey, if you're going for that 1,000 trick-or-treat bags that we talked about earlier, it's probably going to put a nice dent in there. But I'm kind of curious, since I think it was it last year when the Raceway thing came out, was, a lot of people were like, we need something rewarding out of there. But, I'm sure they wanted to make it so other people could obtain it. Do you think this was a high enough price to obtain it without the achievement?
I mean, that's what, 30,000 candy corn?
Yes.
I would say it's high enough, unless you've got somebody like seriously dedicated to farming it. So you can either be really good at rollerblade racing, or you can just be really dedicated to farming. Take your pick.
Yeah. And like chat's saying, you could also still pick up the 20 slot pails, which are like basically easier to obtain 20 slot bags. But those are from previous years, but they are pretty nice to pick up.
And what Mofongo brought up is you can't upgrade them.
That is a shame, since they did add upgrades to the other stuff. But
I'm kind of disappointed that you can upgrade like the standard crafting bags, right? Like the Gossamer bags, you can upgrade those. Why? Like, honestly, just make it like candy corn and like other Halloween crafting material related, but have like an upgrade path to the Halloween pail.
Yeah.
I need to get on that. I need more inventory space.
Also, the third one from the left, is the Last Rites Greatsword, which I believe is what the one you were talking about. You earn that only through the achievement MAAD Armory, Last Rite, which is show your allegiance to the lunatic court by performing various feats while in a ghostly form from eating certain Halloween foods. And also the one next to that, the shield, which is Carapace of Chaos. It's also another achievement, which is MAAD Armory, Carapace of Chaos. Basically, once again, show your allegiance to the lunatic court by performing various feats while in a ghostly form from eating certain Halloween foods. So, and you're saying that each of those requires a certain dungeon
Last
path.
Rites, you need to eat for Last Rites. You need to eat a soul cake, and then the particle effect. That's the effect you have to have when you do these 4 things. You have to beat Shark. You have to get through Sharkmaw Caverns, or rather, you have to loot the final chest of Sharkmaw Caverns jumping puzzle in Lion's Arch. You have to loot. You have to collect the final reward of any explorable path in AC in Ascalonian Catacombs. You have to beat the Urban Battleground Fractal, and you have to loot the Shadow Behemoth's chest. Those 4 things, and you get Last Rites, as long as you're under the effects of the Soul Cake.
Okay.
And the Carapace of Chaos, which is the shield, like I said, literally the easiest way to describe it is Dracula, the lid of Dracula's coffin.
It does look nice.
You have to beat the Vizier's Tower in Straits of Devastation, the an explorable path in Ara, the Deepstone Fractal, and you have to loot Tequatl for that one. And as far as I can tell, these with any food that turns you into ghosts. So strawberry ghosts work too.
Okay, good to know.
So I think you still need to collect, or you have to eat or collect the Saint Bones and the Soul Cake for the Carapace and Last Rites, respectively, because they are in the collection achievement.
They're part of the collection.
Yeah, so you need to actually get those items first in order to finish it. But like Mofongo is saying in chat, it's anything that gives you the ghostly aura effect from Halloween food. And as far as I can tell, there's nothing locking these necessarily. So as long as you still have stuff that gives you the ghostly aura, I think you can do this outside of the event.
Oh, you mean, I don't know, it might go away after. I don't know. Where's the achievement located?
I think it's under Festival, but I don't know if those get locked outside of Festival.
And like chat's saying, there are new food recipes as well that are discoverable, which are the ones that you need for the collections here. So
yeah, I don't know much about the Festival collection stuff because I either pay attention to it or I don't. And when I usually pay attention, I usually finish it before the festival gets patched out. So, but honestly, some fractals, some dungeons, some world bosses, and some jumping puzzles for 2 really
hopefully
cool
it gets
skins.
people like dips their foot in the water type thing and maybe picks up, fractals, or hopefully, who knows. But yeah, big thank you to Majestic Noodle, and will be he also, or they, I don't know exactly their gender, but they also showed off some of the gem store stuff, which we'll show a little bit later. But you're also probably wondering, we showed last week the little teaser image they gave us in the blog post that was showed off the weapons, but also that helmet, the pumpkin helmet that we were all curious about. Well, that is obtainable in game. It is through the achievement, and it's an annual achievement, the Halloween Rituals. Basically complete 9 annual Halloween achievements, and achievements can be completed once every year. So what it sounds like is, I know you get to pick light, medium, or heavy, and it is actually a wearable piece, so you get the skin and that. It sounds like this is going to be kind of one of the metas to go after for the next 3 years. Well, 2 more, I guess, after this, since. So, if you wanted it in all weight classes. Though, do note the scarf once you take that out, you get all 3 weight classes unlocked. But the helmet itself is an actual physical armor piece. I don't think the scarf is. I think it's just a skin, but I could be wrong.
The crown, I don't know. I haven't looked into that one. It's
Yeah,
not
I think
really
the crown
thing
is.
that
I think
would
it's just a rare, but we'll unlock it. But oh god, chat's saying Asura plus pumpkin helmet plus bobblehead lab. Boy, oh
as
boy.
long as it shows the afro through the pumpkin head.
Now, that'd be amazing.
Can you imagine if like the top of the pumpkin came off and the afro came up out of it?
That would be pretty cool.
And then you turn the bobblehead lab on.
How'd that go?
I'm not doing it again. You have a recording.
Oh.
Just go back and watch it.
Though
it's already been recorded for posterity.
But it does appear. I mean, any other thoughts on Halloween in general? I mean, unfortunately, it didn't add any new events, it doesn't seem, but it did add new things to go after, which, and you know, I think a decent amount, especially for a holiday festival, that are in-game rewards.
My biggest.
Oh, they did add a couple races. Okay, I thought those were all the same from last year. My apologies.
My problem is more that there's no update to the lab. I feel like there's not enough to do in the lab itself that it gets kind of tedious.
Yeah, I was a little worried with all the mounts that we're having now. Like,
it's not even with the mounts. There are people who have no mount groups in the LFG, and even
the purists.
I think it's more just in case people get into the lab and they don't have mounts. So I can kind of respect that for them not wanting to leave people who don't have Path of Fire behind. But it's boring. Like, the enemy density is not enough to make it interesting. The Viscount and the Lich get skipped. I think the only reason people fight Steve is because he jumps on top of you.
Yeah, I think people mostly avoid the tougher ones that are mechanic based.
It's not even mechanics. Like, do you want to know how people fight the Lich now?
How?
They get inside the small stone building that's behind where he spawns, and you just group AoE heal and AoE damage and hope people rally off of the skeletons that he summons.
And chat's saying they also nerfed him, which I did hear, which, yeah, that's...
And the Viscount, like, you either bring Reflex or you learn how to stand in the candy corn goop.
For just a little, long enough. You gotta look at your buff bar.
You have to be in it when it disappears in order for the buff to clear, so you don't get the chill equivalent, or for the sugar crash debuff, but like, that's the only finicky bit with it. It's not terribly different to pay attention to the buffs that you have and figure out what the hell is going on. But people skip it because it's apparently not worth the time, so they either need to buff the rewards or do something different with them.
Well, I mean, since Trick or Treat bags drop from it and they're adding this stuff to the Trick or Treat bags,
they drop a large Trick or Treat bag, and I think you get a second one for your first kill of them a day. And that's it. I don't think you get you can get extra Trick or Treat bags from the stuff that spawns around them as you fight, but
and like chat says, a lot of people are trained to just skip it naturally, so now it's...
And the problem then is you have people who don't know, and they open the door, and then the squad leader is just like, just run past it, and it's like, people are gonna die and get down running past it. Just kill it and move on. But I honestly, I think the bosses shouldn't be behind doors. And honestly, I think they need 2 more bosses in the labyrinth. So then you have one for every corner.
Okay.
And then you leave because there are doors that, like, normal doors that spawn near the boss doors. Just leave those doors spawn there. Just don't change that. Just make the bosses spawn in, just like Steve does, out of a random wall in the labyrinth.
Well,
Honestly, a
going
Halloween
along, yeah, it's like going along the lines of the like they're saying like make jokingly saying make a dragon stand type map, but I was just gonna say, what if they made a world, well, not a world boss, but I guess a meta version of the map where after so long, maybe you fight the Mad King or fight, you know, the Bloody Prince or something, or something else if they don't want to do that. But like, what if, heck, what if the Mad King was like, hey, look who I found, and it's just Joko in prison there, and you have to fight him or something.
honestly, a map where Edric is the final boss would be kind of amusing. Like a dragon stand map with Edric as the primary target. I would be cool with that.
Or since there's two different types of doors, whoever has the least amount of doors is the one you have to fight. Like opens the you open the least amount of that type. But
Yeah. But either way, like the labyrinth needs revamped, like the doors specifically. The door events need revamped because you have the horde events, which actually change their spawn rate based on people that are there. But the kill the veteran events, they're still just
yeah,
veterans. And when you've got a
they
squad of
still
50
melt pretty
people,
fast.
yeah. So I think the doors specifically in the labyrinth need changed. And honestly,
And
I think there needs to be more surprise events, like more
mhm.
just the labyrinth. Make the labyrinth feel more like it is a magical construct controlled by the Mad King.
And yeah, chat saying, and I think we talked about it last week was, you know, ideas like
Strike
that of
missions.
hoping for a strike mission or something like that, which once again, like I said before, I would have liked to have seen something like that. Was I expecting one? Not really.
Not
But
necessarily, no. It
but
would have been
yeah,
nice.
yeah, hopefully next year, cuz I mean they do say they want to, this was the purpose of festivals from the get-go, was they could slowly build on that kind of stuff, and I don't want to always just be slowly building on it as in more rewards. I mean, it's nice and all, especially if you're going full, you know, full tilt every year, then yeah, you're probably going to be like, oh, there's nothing for me to gain, but, or maybe just one or two skins and make it more about a strike mission or something. But
Yeah.
I like what chat's saying. Random meteor storm hits the map, but it's pumpkins.
Random pumpkin storm.
Is that a Fortnite reference? The storm, like it's like get into this circle area, and this will be the safe.
Honestly,
No,
the labyrinth would be kind of fun to have something like that happen in it.
mm-hmm.
But
But we're not fully out of. I mean, any final thoughts on the Halloween stuff?
no, I'm good there.
I mean, we're not fully out of the woods with the Halloween stuff because Reddit user, I feel like I want to say Kojima, but it's just Cogima. So I don't know, it's Kogama or, uh, but, and I know that's not how Kojima is spelled, but I feel like it's an attempt at it. But before someone asks me about it. But yeah, they took it upon themselves to open up 100,000 trick or treat bags, which I do have the image. I forgot to put it in, so give me 1 second.
We're doing it live.
Yes, behind the scenes that you won't really get to see, but. And while I do this, do you want to put the link in chat because it will probably be substantially small with all the.
Yeah, I'll grab it. Reddit post. Wait, I
didn't mean
already
to
opened the. I'll just do that. Reddit post. Go.
But yeah, they took it upon themselves to open up 100,000 trick or treat bags. And then they kind of, as you can see in the image there, kind of put them into their own category of what they felt was the truth of the drop rate.
Mac, if you're still here, this topic's for you. It's about drop rates and RNG.
And yeah, honestly, if I would like,
Statistics, man.
I am curious of because if you think about it, it shows in the if you're not aware of this with any of these like trick or treat bags or the black lion chests or anything like that, if you right click and preview it, it usually shows you the I don't want to say drop chance, but the likelihood of it. So common, uncommon, as you're seeing here. Um, but like if you look in the comment section, it says 2 candy corn have a chance to drop, which from their experience of 100,000 trick or treat bags, they got 169,940 pieces of candy corn, which roughly comes out to like if it's by 2, it would be right around 85% of the time. If my math's right. But
Ish. It. I'm not even gonna get into the statistics of it because
well, my point is I would like to go through each of them, but there is a lot there. Um, but you know, they're saying like when you look at their image of very ultra common, where it's like the candy corn and stuff like that, which yeah, 85% of the time. But then they're saying like not really rare, uh, and you know, even less rare and less rare, and like not even a chance to be fooled. I think that's the problem of where their gauge is of common could be anywhere between like as we said with candy corn from just this pretty big pretty big uh set. It will you know that's 85%. Common could be anywhere between 75 and 95, you know, 100% or something, like just because uh what sections are uh rare and super rare. You know, super rare, even though it's including those last two kind of new items, it could be anywhere between 0.1% and 1%, whereas the other stuff's dropping at 1% of the time, whereas the other stuff's dropping 0.1% of the time, which is.
right. I think one of the things that people often confuse is that Guild Wars 2, as far as I'm aware, has no rare drop protection, which generally speaking, to massively oversimplify systems like that, is as you roll against a loot table for a given thing, you slowly gain a better and better and better chance at getting a rare thing. And then when you get a rare thing, your stacking buff of percent chance to get rare thing drops back to 0. So it doesn't matter that he opened 100,000 treat bags. He rolled 100,000 times once against this table. None
Yeah,
of these bag openings affected the other bag openings.
that is
So
another important part to point out.
now I will agree that a lot of games that have these rare drop RNG chances need to have that kind of drop protection system, um, just because otherwise it can be incredibly frustrating. For example, when Heart of Thorns was going to be having betas, there was an event running in the Silver Waste where you could get a rare drop item called Portal to the Maguma Jungle or something. But if you got that, you were automatically entered to be in the beta. Like your account just automatically got flagged for it. And that's how they distributed access to it. So it was the portal to the heart of Maguma. Thank you, Maflongo. So just the crazy amount of farming that went on. And I ended up getting 2. And I remember Arlie being like hella mad at me because she got none. Just because it was just funny because I had cracked a joke about, yeah, watch me get a second one before you get one. And she wanted to cover the beta because she's a games journalist. She kind of had to write an article on it. So I sold mine Carnifex because it was 50 silver a piece. I had a gold sitting in my bank and it was taking up space. They weren't going to do anything with it, I don't think. But and we just like it was all in good fun, but like it was really funny at the time. But again, for stuff like opening bags, some form of drop protection would be great. But well, see that, yeah, that's it. Carnifex is like, if you open 1,000 bags, he feels like you should get something. But again, I've brought up Summoner's War, one of the gacha games that I play on my phone. PDQ, yeah. A real like, if you see, that's the problem though, is you hook people on farming with a shit mechanic that doesn't feel good. So at that point, you get the people who play to farm, and then everybody else who wants the thing and is like, okay, I'll do so. Like, honestly, Last Rites and the Carapace of Chaos, I think, are fantastic because I have a defined list of things I have to do. It's not just I get it out of a box by chance. Like, I got the what was the new Jackal 2K gem skin? I can't remember what it's called. The one with the crazy gold antler looking thing, the spirit stag or whatever the hell it is. I got that out of a Black Lion chest, off of a normal key. Like, I'm happy I got it, but at the same time, like, there's shit like that the Primal
Chat
Spirit.
saying Primal
Hat.
Spirit,
yeah. Yeah, I got it, but like, oh boy, I got it off of an RNG drop. I meh. The Talon bow from a key, yeah. Like, I don't like loot boxes, period. Like, yeah, exactly. It's hard locking content in a box, and then like, people, like, when you see shit like this, like, I opened 100,000 trick-or-treat bags and I got jack. Like, yeah, the gold hoarders will get all the stuff, but you kind of like, you can't really design the game around an edge case, is what I'm getting at here. That's the problem.
yeah.
So it's kind of, a new system has to be figured out. That's why, honestly, when Deo brought up the Black Lion statuettes, because you brought up ESO's system with the crown coins or whatever.
And I was just gonna say, yeah, basically with ESO system is every time you open something, if it's a double, you can trade it in for X amount of their system's gems. I don't want to confuse our system and their system, but it's a secondary currency where you could purchase things. Basically, how they then introduce the statuettes. But I was gonna say, is it that bad? Because like chat's saying, where they opened 1,000, got 2 flame weapon chests, one from opening the chest and one from the achievement. That is kind of like what we're talking about here. Is it has a fail mechanic, and like eventually you'll get one when you open up 1,000. It's so, I mean, is that just maybe not good enough, or
I'm thinking more for like the stuff that is literally only in the bag.
mm-hmm.
That's the stuff I have a problem with. If you can get other items other ways, like, for example, I brought up the Primal Spirit. I could have got that by shelling out the money for 2,000 gems if I really wanted it, but now I just have it for no effort. Okay, cool, whatever. Sure. The Carapace of Chaos and Last Rites, they're not in the bag because here is a list of things to do. I'm okay. Like, I'd legitimately be okay if they were in the bag. And yeah, that's the other thing, Mofongo, is you can go to the trading post to get items, but I also kind of feel like you either have to go all in on designing your drop rates like the trading post exists, or you have to design like the trading post doesn't exist. And I feel like ArenaNet waffles on that based on whims. Like when we get soulbound stuff that you can't trade, when they tried to float the idea of soulbound Black Lion ticket weapons, and everybody was just like, no, and they never did that again. Yeah, like that's it's you either just let the player economy go or you treat it like it doesn't exist. Pick one. Don't go somewhere in the middle. It's not a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
But in general, looking at this drop table, like this drop table isn't this what this guy got out of this doesn't mean anything. Because trying to figure, like, the only thing you can get out of a drop table like this,
it helps data wise, like for getting a rough estimation, but because 100,000 is a lot for you know, kind of a N, though that's kind of figuring out does that I guess in research you basically try to figure out how accurate that would be to make it to the full scale, because I mean 100,000 sounds like a lot to me, probably to a lot of people. Probably in the grand scheme of how many drop, it's probably not a lot.
The problem though is, in order to get a decent drop rate, you'd have to repeat this for another 100,000, and then another 100,000,
Yes,
and then another 100,000, and you'd have to control for the number of bags opened over multiple opening sessions in order to actually get some kind of semblance of a decent, like, idea of what the drop rate is. Because with the way RNG works, with the way number generators work, this result, even at 100,000 bags, the items in the very rare category can swing wildly.
mm-hmm.
So even at 100,000, this still, I don't think, is a good example of anything, which sucks.
Yeah, I agree.
It's kind of dumb, but it's where we are.
I mean, seeing kind of any of this, do you think that the trick or treat bags need an update, like
Yes,
a redesign, or
any
I think at the
holiday
very
that has,
least, universally, we need to see percentages, but that's never going to happen until
there's a law about it.
Yeah, until there's
just
mandating.
like China did.
Yeah.
Shocking this day and age with the news stories coming out, me saying something that China did positively.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I went there. But I don't think, if they're going to continue with doing holiday themed loot boxes like this, there needs to be some way to convert the junk you get out of it into something useful. At the very least, the candy corn, you can turn that into candy corn cobs and you can buy stuff, like some of the stuff that, like the ghostly racing scarf. Yeah. And other items from Halloween is all candy corn cobs. So at the very least, you can turn the candy corn into something.
Yeah.
As for the rest of the items, I'm not so sure.
I don't know. I thought it was an interesting piece of data, but yeah, I think the biggest thing is, like you're saying, it doesn't fully prove everything. I think it's a great start, which probably sounds like a negative, when I know I would feel bad if I was like opened up 100,000 bags and someone said that's a great start. I'd be like, F you. Like, but that's the unfortunate but also good side of research and studying stuff, is you gotta stick with it. And I know a lot of people try to construct it every year, like, oh, I have 1,000, this is my drop rate, this is mine. Like, that's a lot of important data to collect, but unfortunately they always add more stuff to the bag, so then it skews everything of previous years. Yeah, I agree, Mofongo, and I think I was saying that even last week was hopefully with the weapons that look like dungeon weapons that they could have maybe utilized some of that stuff to, like, candy cornify it, was to put another use, because it was like, yeah, after you got some of the maybe the early on weapons that were from year one, you don't have many uses for it. Oh,
I mean, that's exactly why I got so mad about the Grandmaster crafting marks and how they use like what I call the half ascended crafting materials. They added more items to the game to do something that they could have done with existing material. There's a lot of existing material around.
yeah,
Do a thing.
I agree. But yeah, so I guess until we get to the gem store, that's kind of the last bit of Halloweenish stuff. But cabbage, cabbage and butter. But yeah, any other thoughts on the 100,000 trick or treat bags stats? And also this week with the Halloween patch was kind of just some quick little fixes apart from gem store and the patch notes, which, like I said, we'll get to that. But we did see some minor tweaks to, I think, the professions, which were kind of the only other parts that I saw in the patch notes itself. But and there are little things like, for example, Elementalist Meteor Shower fixed a visual bug that could call meteor landing effects before they were complete. Signet of Air fixed a bug that prevented this skill from gaining the benefits of the written in stone trait if used without a target. Engineer Impact Savant fixed a bug that prevented Vitality from being affected by this trait in PvP and War v World. Now correctly decreased Vitality by 180 in all game modes. Guardian Zealot's Defense increased damage by 20% in PvE. And Tomb of Courage, Epilogue, which Epilogue Unbroken Lines fixed a missing tooltip about it granting Aegis. Mesmer Chaos Armor fixed a bug in which the effect granted by this skill was incorrectly called Chaos Armor instead of Chaos Aura. Necromancer Manifest Sandshade fixed a bug that prevented the effect of this skill from lasting more than 10 seconds in PvP and War v World when not traded with Sand Savant. This effect will now last for the increased duration of 15 seconds in PvP and War v World. Ranger Juvenile Wyvern Pets fixed a bug that prevented the wind effects from displaying during the use of the wing buffet. I want to say buffet. Wing buffet. I'm going with it.
Are you hungry, Deo?
Yeah, I am. Maybe I'll get wings afterwards. Some Revenant stuff. It just seemed like clarification on tooltips. Elemental Blast fixed a bug that allowed this skill to be used underwater to hit foes at a range that was greater than intended. So it seems like a lot of adjusting of things. Warrior, basically fixed a bug that prevented the version shake it off. I think really the only one that was like a straight, like, actual tweaking of stuff was Guardian with the Zealot's Defense. Like, and I guess the Necromancer one, but that was not working correctly. So
Yep.
The only one that I feel like was
all bug fixes. Yeah.
Wyvern Pet bombards your enemies with a bucket of KSE. Ooh, there we go. See, ANet, you gotta check out chat. Forget the bubble tea. I want a KFC commercial where they're bringing back the double down,
God.
thanks to ArenaNet. Come on.
Oh God. Oh no. Oh God. Oh, I tried one of those once.
I never
lost
did.
5 years of my life. I did it just because I wanted to know.
You wanted to be one of the people.
The double bypass hat. That's accurate. It bombards them with KFC and it inflicts cripple because people are too slow from eating all the chicken. Yeah, it's true. They don't have they have the dating sim, so they don't have to worry about
Yeah,
doing any cross promotion.
that's the perfect time. They'll get into gaming, be like, hey, we just came out with Ascended Cooking. Come on, we can make something happen. Just saying.
I know.
But yeah, so like I said, minor tweaks besides, Halloween stuff and gem store stuff but any other thoughts from the patch notes?
No, I'm just getting ready to talk about the fun stuff.
Yeah, so we're gonna go in through this as it happened throughout the week. Of course, Tuesday, ArcDPS did remove their build templates in preparation for the build templates to be coming later. And we are aware of the other stuff, the stuff that just currently happened, I think a couple hours ago. We'll get to that, don't worry. But yeah, as we talked about last week, the build templates were disabled in ArcDPS starting October 15th. So what appears like you definitely might want to make sure to get that out of your systems, especially if you're loading up. We'll get into that a little bit more since it still is a little bit hazy from when we were, a lot of information but was being thrown out. We don't know which is exactly truth when we talk about it later. But another part of what was a add-on for ArcDPS, Mars, the developer for Mechanics Log and Boon Table plugins for ArcDPS, is stopping development as well. And they said that in practice they haven't touched the code in over a month, but the recent announcement of official build templates has lost, for them, whatever faith they had left in ArenaNet. And they also go on to say they will still be raiding in Guild Wars 2, but not enough to maintain the plugins for any new content. The existing plugins will work as they do now, as long as ArcDPS itself maintains the same combat API. They do go on to say major thanks to everyone who contributed to its development, whether it's by asking questions, reporting bugs, requesting features, or even just using them. And they did also throw out there that if anyone is interested in continuing development for anything else, they have posted the source code in their GitHub. And they do say, fair warning, that this was their first C++ project ever, and also their first time using Visual Studio, so it might be rough for a seasoned user of both those systems. So they kind of gave that little bit of a warning. So I guess my question is, because I personally haven't used ArcDPS or any of the plugins, but from what I could understand from the mechanics log, it seemed like it kind of told you who stood in what bad stuff potentially and stuff like that. I'm curious. I know we do have a lot more experienced people with ArcDPS out there. If you are more familiar with this plugin, to elaborate more, but it did, from the very basic level, it did seem like it recorded who was kind of in bad stuff or getting hit by some of the mechanics, which, I mean, it is sad to see someone kind of lose faith in, a company or in a game that they've enjoyed for so long. Like they said, they're still going to play and whatnot. And, if worst case scenario, maybe they regain faith and down the road they might pick it back up. Who knows? That I think remains to be seen, but I well, we'll get to that. And like I said, I think there's just too many jumping to conclusions so early on. But we'll try to break that down because it is ArcDPS related. But my question is, as I was reading all this stuff, I feel like, and this was, I think, my worry with raids to begin with. I think this was one of my worries, because we talked about comparing it to WoW and stuff when they first announced it, was WoW really became making a game or making raid encounters tailored to using add-ons. Like if you didn't use them, it was 20 times more, like you were so far behind.
Everything was it was specifically deadly boss mods.
Yes.
Because everything in World of Warcraft was designed around timers. And because the API for the add-ons had access to the hooks for those timers, you could tell when a boss was going to do something or who was being targeted by a mechanic. That's why I can never remember the name of the mod, but it was World of Warcraft raiding was defeated by simple geometry. Or trigonometry, technically, because it was plotting 2D planes based on 3D space. But there was an add-on mod that painted properly shaped circles of red or stuff. Like it gave you ground zones to stay out of.
And I remember seeing that at the tail end when I stopped playing.
And it was,
I thought you could actually hilarious. Couldn't you actually have your raid leader draw on the map for, like, basically?
Yep.
It would draw it for you and stuff. So
World of Warcraft raiding had a similar like waypoint marking system as Guild Wars 2 has, and you can avoid that. Like you could just use it during the mod, and you could put marks on the ground as simple as drawing stuff. So,
but yeah, I think that was always my question was, and I know it's a thing that they've always strived for as one of their things from the very get-go, was they wanted people to play the game and not the UI. I'm wondering if this was always my one worry with raids was, were we going to hit this moment? And from what I can understand, the mechanics log is kind of this like, basically people can look at it and go, hey, you were standing this stuff, and like you're focusing more on your bars and your all that stuff, which I think is an okay thing for other games. But once again, I feel like going back to all the stuff I used to say was, I feel like Guild Wars 2 raids betrayed what Guild Wars 2 was from the get-go.
I don't know if I could personally,
without going down this whole rabbit hole. I know this is slowly opening it, but
yeah, that's getting into the is raiding a good thing in an MMO kind of deal. But
I mean, honestly, I don't mind it in ESO and stuff. I just felt like when they kind of had to shift,
having some kind of boon tracker or uptime tracker is cool for personal development. The second you start using it to yell at people for you stood in the fire, or your uptime isn't good enough, or you're not hitting your buttons fast enough, that's when something becomes a problem. Because
that's why I'm sure, because when we talked about DPS meters in the past and leading up to when ArcDPS was given the okay and all that stuff, I know a lot of people said, well, I use it for personal growth, and if you're in like a tight knit rating group and say, hey man, I see you're standing in that fire, are you seeing the things? Is your settings, maybe checking certain things? There are those groups of people. I don't want to discount them, but I'm wondering how many people used it for that reason, which is a good way to improve yourself, or this noob that is in my pug, screw them and all these losers, and
etc. etc. Yeah.
I'm wondering what it was used more for. Because yeah, I know there are great, friendly people in raiding. In any game mode, there's friendly people and they're jerks. Like so I don't want to make it sound like there's only jerks in raiding. No, of course not. But yeah, I don't know. It just feels like when I started thinking about that, where it's like, how much are people looking at the actual game versus bars and all that other stuff? Like,
I don't know. Like as someone who's never downloaded a single add-on like for Guild Wars 2, I really
and chat saying that's a criticism of the players though, not the tool itself. But from a development standpoint, for a thing that they've temporarily given the green light for, if it is having a negative effect, what are they going to do? Be like, hey guys, you should be nicer, or just go, all right, we're just not allowing this anymore. Like, that's what companies have done in the past, because that is the easier route of the two, is to try, And I agree. Humanity will always find the easier way, or always, especially with anonymity, be a jerk to other people.
Yep.
I think Guild Wars 2 is one of the better communities that combat that, but it is still there. I mean, but that was one thing I was playing around in my head, was how often are people focusing on that and not the game itself? So I don't know.
I think you're having more of a criticism of allowing add-ons in a general sense than.
And that was my one big concern, and that's why I was like sitting here going, and this is from someone that doesn't use the add-ons or anything like that, is it a bad thing that people are stopping this? Like, is this what they wanted for raids, is I guess my question.
Honestly, I've always looked at it this way: the DPS golem in the raid testing area, that's enough. Something that accurately reports your DPS under situations that you have control over, that's enough. If you know your DPS in a controlled situation, you should have a rough idea of what your DPS should be under a live fire, so to speak, scenario.
Yeah.
And the only time I've ever seen DPS meters posted as like on Reddit or anything, the last time I remember seeing it was the guy playing Power Reaper who was getting kicked out of groups for doing low damage. And that was way back when. So I don't know, but I'm more interested to talk about the second half of this. Is not necessarily the disabling of build templates, but the supposed banning.
Yeah, it seems like I don't know exactly when this happened. It showed like maybe an hour or so before on the Guild Wars 2 subreddit. Since we go live on at 4 on Saturday, so around 3 or maybe even 2, as early as 2. But apparently, from the Snow Crows Discord, they were apparently saying, watch out from using ArcDPS. Apparently, some of them got banned. It seems like from comments and stuff below that they were using some are saying reverse engineered, but basically a modified version so they could continue to use the build templates for ArcDPS specifically. So not ArcDPS in general, but the build templates thing specifically. So they were using a modified version, which apparently they're getting the one or two people that were using it from Snow Crows is apparently getting permabanned. And like I said, I think it's important to remember this is happening what seems like on a Saturday, or at least at the very least Friday night for ArenaNet. I think that's going to be important to talk about later. But it seems like another one has popped up that apparently they're claiming that they haven't played for about 3 weeks or so, and they returned to loaded up and I guess got permabanned. So it seems like the two cases are a group that's using a modified version of the code that's no longer supported. You're probably seeing where I'm going with that. And the second person supposedly has an old version that is creating this permaban, which, like I said, I think it's important to note, if both of these are true, and that's how we're going to try to take it from that perspective. But I think it always take it with a grain of salt, especially as this develops. We'll probably maybe even talk about it next week if it develops further. But Um, I would say for the people that are using a modified version of ArcDPS, like I said, the build templates that is no longer supported, it you're using something that they already warranted as no longer, we don't want people using this anymore after this certain date, and the person that originally created it respected those wishes. If you're going to continue to use it, that, I mean, you're using a modified version, you should deal with some kind of punishment. I still, and I would say a permanent ban is a little bit much, but and I was talking about this before the show, was I have a feeling that this is an automated response. Like, I don't think this was someone at ArenaNet. More than likely, if they have someone come in soon, or maybe you'll hear on Monday, like, hey, it triggered their automated system. You know, especially during this transitional period, I think they should be a little bit lighter on this kind of stuff, as like, hey, we're being serious. Don't try to use, you know, even a modified version. Now, that's the case of, supposedly, from what I can gather from the Reddit post, that Snow Crows was using. And chat
Also,
is saying, oh, go ahead.
from reading through some of the Reddit threads, apparently Arc has a kill switch in it. So you didn't even need to update the DLL for the DPS to disable the templates. So the modified DLL that we're hearing people get banned for using it has to be modified. It has to be something about the file that is being used. Yeah, I'm Maddie Craig. I'm assuming that you don't have access to the templates anymore, because I'm seeing people say that there was a I'm seeing people say that there was a kill switch that just disabled the templates when Delta was asked to remove them in the first place. So I don't know what people want to hear. It's, if you're using modified game clients or modified game files to do anything in the game, you should expect something to happen. Most of the systems that respond to this kind of stuff are automated. So if people are getting permaban, that's just what they decided to tell the system to do.
Are you
It's
sure
not,
about that, chat? Because I've seen a lot of people saying that it's a modified version so they could continue to use it. At least the Snow Crows one. I heard the other one was an older version. Okay. I did not see that updated by anyone else, but
now the problem I have on top of that is the entirety of Arc, all of it. Again,
well,
QED, Deo brought up that this announcement went out Friday afternoon for ArenaNet. And like I just said, most systems like this are automated. They're all at home for the most part.
yeah, I think the permaban's an automated system thing. I really don't think this was them going, well, we're, going to show them type thing.
Yeah.
I would hope not. Like I said, this is all speculation, but yeah, you got to remember this was a Friday evening or Saturday type event that happened. If to think this was a malicious attempt directed at those people, I think is a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, like I don't see anything malicious in this, and honestly, we'd have to wait for an official statement to come out from ArenaNet on this. Again, the other problem is any kind of add-on is 100% at the discretion of ArenaNet, and they can withdraw their approval of it because it's a day that ends in Y.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it kind of happened if you go back to our old shows. That particular music that we used was royalty free until one day it wasn't. They decided they didn't want it to, like, that's kind of how it does. Like, it happens. They can make it where they want to start charging money for it, and then you got to pay or stop using. It's works along the same lines as.
And Zach, that was something I was talking about in the pre-show. Is permaban is overkill, but again, I feel like this is the response of an automated system seeing modified game files.
Yes.
The game is behaving in ways that an automated system may have been told, hey, the game's not supposed to do that, plunk. And that's the problem I have, QED, is there has been no official announcement. There's been nothing in the game. There's been, like, honestly, they could probably kill everything that Arc hooks onto if they really wanted to give a warning of like, hey, you need to update. But
they should announce if their stance has changed. They've been saying it for quite some time. Like,
well, ever since the build templates came out, they said, yeah, this is fine until we implement our own.
Yeah, literally when that was the understanding from the get-go, was once they start developing their own, and if you have been downloading from the ArcDPS and build templates, they were even saying leading up October 15th, I'm stopping support. Like, I mean, yeah, and it is a bad transition period, and that's why I was saying I feel like hopefully that this is an automated thing, and that I don't think this is a permanent ban. There should be a punishment for it, because if they are using a knowledgeable modified version, if it is an old version, which I feel like, not gonna lie, Snow Crows would probably have their stuff updated. I feel like for them it would probably be a purposeful thing of going back to older versions to see if they would work. But you'd have to give everybody a benefit of doubt of, not do, and I still wouldn't even think a permanent ban, especially since, and we said this in the past, and I've seen other people mentioning this, they've really set the bar of, they've had people cheat in their PvP tournaments. You set this bar of kind of being lackadaisical with severe punishments to your systems, that I don't think, especially at this time, during a transition period, a permanent ban will be warranted. Maybe down the road, but at this time, no. Personally, for me.
Also, the other thing that I possibly think of is, and I hate to say that I don't believe people, but because I've been on the internet so long, I don't believe people. Do we know that they're banned because of Arc?
And I was to say, I think that's the other issue is, do we know that? Because I know the other person was saying, oh, I haven't played for 3 weeks and I come back and I'm banned by that. We always hear that in the past of other issues where it's like, well, I didn't do anything wrong, and then they come with logs. And I'm not saying that they are, but that has kind of been the case in the past where it's like, well, you did do this stuff, and I agree, some people don't keep up with it, the update manually. But like I said, I think from a Snow Crow's perspective, the people that are top raters, you don't think they're aware of the updates? Yeah, you're muted.
Yeah, I would think that like people from the people who actively make use of, and the people who are the edge case of having like 20 builds in Arc build templates, those are the people who are going to be paying attention to the patch notes, the Reddit, to the forums, Twitter, etc. Yeah, but the problem is, Maddie, is he said he hasn't played in weeks.
And that,
we have no proof to corroborate that.
yeah, and that's why I'm saying, let's, until we see both sides of it, take it with a grain of salt. But I truly do think this is an automated thing that probably tries to get bots and all that stuff and just permabans them, and then they go back to, dealing with false positives or something like that. Which, remember, it is the weekend. To think that they're there 24/7. If they had to have people there 24/7, there'd be more stuff in the gem store. Yeah, that wasn't a transition. That was more of a joke.
Yeah, but I will agree that there is kind of a disconnect in the punishments for people doing shit in PvP versus something like this, which is, again, another thing that leads me to believe that this is an automated system perma-banning people, because if you are literally undermining the credibility of a third of the game's systems and you get minor punishments, relatively speaking, where you can just start a new account. And see, that's the problem, QED, is it's possible that the automated system was told to look for the newer version of Arc to permit it, the one that had the kill switch installed to the DLL, the hard shutoff date for the build templates. So the older version of Arc might have been seen as an illicit modification of the game files. So again, automated system thing. Because
And
to pull from my my World of Warcraft experience, whenever World of Warcraft updated, like the version number changed, period, the end, you had to update all of your mods, because in order for a mod to function, there was a line of code in it that had to be the live version of WoW. It basically had to be tagged to the version of WoW that it worked with. Nothing in the mod could have changed. Nothing in the game that affects the mod might have changed, but you needed to update that line of code. And that was basically what made the game recognize it as a valid mod. So if they were using the old DLL, ANet might have flagged everything that didn't have the kill switch for build templates in it. And that's why they're getting permabanned, is because the game system is seeing modified files and it's just thud.
And that's why I think going forward, that's what I was saying with this person that said they haven't played for 3 weeks and they returned with an older version. I feel like at this point they need to put a clean version of the DLL file in the next update. Say, hey, sorry, this was kind of like what Jim was saying. This was an automated thing. This is what happened due to we're reversing these bans. Apologies, but there's gonna be an update that is gonna replace your DLL file with a clean one. Update to the most recent ArcDPS, because that is the permitted one that has no build template feature, and move on from there. And at that point, if people are then being caught used, because if you then return to the game, it should hopefully give you that clean DLL file. But yeah, I really do think this boils down to an automated issue that maybe they didn't think about or overlooked, which unfortunately does happen. It's someone should make a free account, grab the DLL, and watch what happens.
The fresh DLL, the one that has the supposed kill switch code, I would assume nothing.
Yeah,
because we haven't been told that ArcDPS was disallowed. So,
but like I said, this kind of just started an hour or so before the show. So as this probably progresses, we might probably revisit it.
This is definitely some more after show stuff. Yeah.
Well, we might revisit it like next week, where
that too. If we
ArenaNet might get a chance to say what because this is a lot of the one side. We don't know what's actually happening.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, you could try that experiment. I'm not recommending that. That's on someone else. I don't. But yeah, I think a lot of people are jumping to conclusions on this, sadly. Like they're jumping to it too quickly and not. I think, like I said before, a lot of people are running on internet time when you got to realize, ArenaNet is still a probably 9 to 5 or 8 to 5 company.
It's a business where people have to drive into the office.
Yeah.
And QED, I get being mad, but is rage really the appropriate emotion here? Like literal rage? Anger I can totally understand, because it hasn't been communicated clearly. There is a great deal to be angry about here. It's poor communication, automated ban systems, permabans, which I agree is totally within context. It is not appropriate because we are in a transition period of an approved mod system into a game system. Well, again, my problem is, like, what do you mean it's a reappearing issue? Or which mistakes do we need to learn from? Because just making a mistake doesn't help you prevent all future mistakes. But to the point for the thing, like permabans, not great, which again, automated system probably, because we're going from a build template system that was permitted to one that they're working on. There's no real announcement, there's no real communication about what is and isn't permitted. No communication, I mean, we've talked about that before. If they communicate, they get angry responses, and if they don't communicate, they get angry responses. There's really no win for them. Should they have communicated in this instance? Yes, but again, hindsight.
And you got to think from your perspective. This is just an example for anyone, but come on, QED, why are you being such an idiot to ArenaNet? Blah, blah, blah. Like, if you're met with this such a vitriol anger as a human, anyone will shut down. Like, don't want to deal with it initially. Like,
take it from the psych expert.
I mean, I mean, I'm not trying to get like, and I agree. They do have trouble with communication. A lot of companies do, but a lot of companies do very well at it. But I don't think the community is helping with that either.
Yeah.
And like we said, I think that was an automated thing that maybe they just either weren't thinking about or just.
And again, I agree with you. Permaban is not the appropriate
Yeah.
response here. We both agree with you.
Yeah, I don't
I'm correct
think,
there, right? Okay.
Yeah, I don't think permaban, especially because, like I said, they set up with the others things where they're kind of at what I mean, going back to inks all the time, the slap on the wrist, like they kind of established that with their other punishments. To go that far, that fast, I feel like is an automated thing that.
Yeah, like I don't. Permaban's not a good idea in this transitionary period in the context of everything. Hang on a second. Let me go check the forums. We have a game update link just above in the notes here. Patch notes, game updates. This was the update that should have done it. There were two additional. There was one. There was a bug fix pushed October 16th. And there was just some late notes later on October 15th. So there's only been one additional patch package,
which would push it to
out.
a Wednesday. But I mean, is it an instant thing, or does it try to make sure it's not a one-off thing? Like, I don't know how these systems work.
The problem is it's different for every single game.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't sure if they.
Any kind of automated system and it's also possible, the people who are getting banned, they might not have raided since then. So they might not have attempted to use the build templates, or they might not have done an action that triggered the system to scan their.
I was gonna say, I don't know how the files would work. Wouldn't it, as someone that doesn't understand it, wouldn't it just naturally read it, or is it only when it's called upon? Like,
the only time a computer system knows that a thing is happening is if it is either A, actively scanning the files on the machine that is running the software, which people tend to get mad about because oftentimes those kinds of systems overstep their bounds and go into files
but it's
that
anti-cheat software, right? That's always what you see when it scans your.
I think EA has gotten in trouble for scanning the entirety of C on a lot of occasions. But the other thing is, if you put the trigger on a call. So if a certain command is called, it sends a message. So, and then, it triggers something to happen. It's just basically like when you press 1 in Guild Wars 2, that activates skill 1, sends the call to the servers to say, hey, they press skill 1, do the animation and the damage calculations. So,
Yeah, and chat's also bringing up, I've been in a couple call centers, and I know that is a common thing where, especially if you feel like people are too far gone in the sense of like anger, like they're just there to shout, like they don't even care anymore. It's a waste to the company's time. It's the waste to even more of their time. It's, you're not going to get anywhere with it. And
I
yeah,
only I've run help desk for my company before. That was my previous position before I moved to programming, and I've hung up on fellow coworkers because they were just too
irate.
irate. Yes. So, yeah, I like anger. I get like the perma banning, not right. Again, like I said, automated system probably. So we have to wait until Monday to actually get a properly formatted business response from ArenaNet. But rage, I think, is a tier of anger that is beyond the current necessity. But that's me. And how you assign your anger is like, that's a personal thing and that's emotional, and I'm not going to get into that because
Yeah.
we have
I
other
mean,
stuff to look at, which is like good stuff. We actually have good news to talk about after this. Great job, UNH, on setting up the show notes to put that after this.
what are you talking about? There's no hope.
I
Sorry,
was
continue.
actually expecting you to get up and walk away. But it's
But
already been an hour
yeah.
and a half, so we should probably move on.
Oh boy, yeah. But yeah, like I said, I think this is still early on. We'll probably talk about it next week when we do, like I said, when we do get to hear the other half or more of it, because like it's said, it's only been out for like people have been talking about it I don't want to say globally because I don't think the subreddit's the end all be all as much as they'd like it to be. But I think it's gotten more of a public eye only in the last couple hours. So, um, but yeah, like you said, there's possibly a silver lining. Not with our DPS. Well, with the build template thing. But apparently, ANet Cameron is actually looking for feedback on fractals. On Reddit they basically said it's really nice to see love for Nightmare and Shattered, even 3 years later. They were designed from the ground up for replay value, but they never thought they'd still be this popular. It's their intention to try and take the best parts of these fractals and apply it where they can to future content, so fractals or otherwise. They did say they can't promise anything specific, but they can take the feedback in this thread, which we'll throw the link to if you want to voice your opinion. And basically future conversation to help guide their path. So the questions that he asked for on feedback were what aspects of these, and I'm assuming they're talking in relation to Nightmare and Shattered, keep you coming back? What do you wish was different? What could they have done better? And what did they do well? And I mean, I know a lot of people are talking about challenge modes, and that's been a running thing. I think that, and I know it feels like maybe it's a broken record to us, but I think every opportunity you have, like when something comes up like this, and say, no, we really like the challenge modes. Like, maybe the higher ups need to hear it from a dev's mouth the 10th time to go, oh, maybe we should actually start looking into it. Like,
I can guarantee that people who spend the money need to hear that this is a good idea and this is what people want over and over and over and over again until the devs are blue in the face, because it's just a thing that happens.
No, that doesn't mean
Uh,
just go to every stream or whatever and shout it at them. But like,
right.
they're coming out with saying, what do you guys want to see in relations to fractals and possibly
I
beyond?
didn't post in that thread because I actually really like Aquatic Ruins. I like playing Echo, and I'm fairly certain I would get yelled at a lot.
You might get yelled at here.
Look, I really enjoy the fact that you are in the mists and weird shit happens in the mists.
Mhm.
So turning into a tiny baby dolphin and having to avoid crate, that's some weird shit. I like it. I don't really know what else to say about it. I mean, you're right, QED. It will take time to flow things in. And again, we're still dealing with the fallout of the business restructuring. Like
And that's
there's
what he
gonna
even said. Like later on, he was like saying, thank you all for the support, and how he said it's been a tough year, and seeing this post has really lifted his spirits and all. It's definitely not. It's definitely not been a good year, I think, on either side of the playing field. I know a lot of people are worried that are the consumers, and we talked about in the past that they've lost friends. Other people are moving on to other jobs, which is it. We'll get into it later, but is a natural kind of thing of businesses. It's
yeah. But generally speaking, anytime a dev is permitted to solicit feedback from the community actively like this, instead of just lurking a forum and looking for stuff.
or a podcast. If you're listening to this in the audio, I kind of spiked the lens and did a cheesy grin. But anyway, go ahead.
That's like your standard for anything, though.
True.
I know, Torment. It's different. And look, to like honestly, it needs fixed because it's kind of janky. But and if Aaron's still around, he's the person who butted heads with me on this. I love when the game forces you to have different skills. I like that. Yeah, I know. But
I don't know. Call me crazy. I like playing my character. But
I get that. I get that.
You do you.
I get that. See, that's the thing. It's like I'm not going to yell at you for that.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
He does off stream. He yells at me about it all the time. Sorry. I'm kidding, just in case.
You got to do. You have to repeat that for the audio podcast.
I know.
For the audio podcast, I looked over my glasses at Deo. Anyway, it's great that. Have you been designing a new underwater fractal with Deo, Torment? Is that what this is?
I was gonna say I support that. For
maybe shark eating quadrants. Yeah. I don't know, but like I'm happy to see that someone is able to solicit feedback still, because that's when World of Warcraft took a downhill turn for me, when they hid all of the devs behind a single Twitter account, and that was it. There were no more blue posts other than official statements, and it was always from
which that's a good point. Even with all the all the crazy up and down stuff. I mean, we can go all the way back to stuff we talked about last week with that we're talking about years ago with some of the devs out there. They never were like, don't post stuff on your personal things. We all tweet it from the Guild Wars 2 dev team, like Twitter or something, like, which I think is important. I think devs. I think both sides should be able to speak their mind as long as it's respectable to both sides. But yeah, and I know he goes on to say, your voices are heard. but as he said in the original post, he can't promise anything, but that he would, carry our thoughts as a community, ideas and values into future conversations. So I think, big thank you to him, and hopefully we see, positive change. But I still think we haven't really hit too much. Discussing what do people want to see. I mean, what made you go back to those instances? I mean, I did kind of like the story of it. I mean,
Having not done fractals in a really long time, I couldn't tell you. I remember the Aquatic Ruins fractal, specifically the Echo one, primarily because it forced me to work around a new set of tools. So
mm-hmm.
I
Well,
like that.
I know in this post they're looking to, at least they were looking directly at the Nightmare and Shattered one. I don't know if they're. I mean, I think it's important to also say what you like about the other ones as well, but.
Well, I mean, and there's still good things to salvage from even the original fractals. Cliffside with the hammer and having to cart the hammer all the way up the cliff. That's,
You
playing
just
hot
like that because it
potato.
changes your skills, like the dolphin thing, huh?
But you still keep your utility skills, so
Yeah, I know.
it's not. Um, that's a good mechanic. The Nightmare fractal, the Nightmare Tower that has the bullet hell bits. I actually enjoy those parts.
Yeah, and I
Because
think
that's
didn't that have a challenge mode, like,
you had to
or
do the
maybe it just
middle.
had the achievement where you couldn't be downed. It's been a while since I've
You
been in
the
there.
one achievement I remember is you had to do the middle one first.
Okay,
And I
yeah,
remember the
because it
first
would
time we did
trickle
that,
over.
we did it by accident because we didn't realize that doing the other ones would make it easier.
Yeah,
But I still think that even old Tyria, vanilla Guild Wars 2 stuff, has good stuff to bring forward. Just needs to be kind of polished to current standards.
I mean, yeah, like I said, I enjoyed, like, because the Nightmare and Shattered, if I remember, isn't that part of the story arc ones with Arc?
Yes.
Like, yeah, I kind of loved the mini
The
story
plot
arcs,
line
and
bit, yeah.
yeah. I think it might be a tough thing for fractals since it is supposed to be a fractured type thing, but chat is saying on 99 actually everything makes sense. There is no unneeded bric-a-brac. Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say I know they made a lot of those changes where it did definitely build a lot nicer. So, which I think is maybe an important thing, hopefully, with strike missions in the future, which we'll talk about. But I know a lot of people have had issues with the reward structure, which I mean I think that's across the board though, unfortunately. But I don't know. Is there like any way to do a repeatable thing to deal with like fractal relics that people could capitalize on? Is the question that wouldn't get, because that's the problem, is they put out a new thing and everybody has like so many fractal relics, or whatever, the
Well,
numerous,
I suppose that's the problem that becomes, like, that's why they introduced the new raid currency with the quote unquote Path of Fire raids, is that you have the people who raid as the content they like to do, and unless you change the currency from the magnetite shards to something else, everybody who's been raiding is just going to take their giant bank of magnetite shards and slap the vendor with them and then walk away with all the shiny new stuff.
Oh yeah, because I was gonna say you can only I was about to say couldn't you already convert, but that's pristine relics to regular ones if I'm not mistaken. That would be nice to
convert
that
up.
would be nice to have it go the other way, but would that also shorten like, wouldn't it get people to that issue faster of they don't have anything to spend it on?
Unless it was
I'm trying
at
to
a
think of this
loss.
as a designer. Like,
Well, it would have to be at some kind of loss, so that if you kept going back and forth, you would have steadily lower and lower numbers. Because what, a pristine turns into 15 regular relics?
I
Well,
think so.
yeah. Having not done the latest released fractals, I can't really comment one way or the other on that QED. I think we talked about that before. But one of the things that I do remember is in some of the things that I was talking about with some of the guys in QED's server, there are unblockable and undodgeable mechanics that are CCs that don't pay attention to evade or stability in one of the newer fractals. Like it's wind on a ship. I think it was Siren's Reef that somebody mentioned in one of the Reddit threads, where there is a wind that knocks you down, and it bypasses all of a player's capabilities to avoid CC,
Oh, that's, yeah.
which I think is bad design, because I remember dealing with that as a paladin in World of Warcraft, because they finally realized that giving paladins divine shield allowed paladins to cheese a lot of mechanics. There was this tank combo that required decent reflexes, where you would divine shield as the paladin tank as a boss was about to do some kind of big damage single target move, and then taunt. And taunt forced something to attack you. So you would have divine shield up, you'd eat the big hit, take no damage, and you'd have another button that you could, because you could just right click to remove buffs, or it was like / cancel aura and then the spell effect, and you could remove the spell effect from yourself. So you would bubble, taunt, eat the hit, turn the shield off in order to continue tanking appropriately, but you just saved your healers a whole bunch of mana. They just started making things ignore divine shield, which, okay, that's basically why they kind of stopped developing. That's basically your complaint about reflect mechanics, Deo, is you can't reflect bears.
Sadly not.
But a mechanic is so good at what it does, and it screws up a lot of the design toolkit for a developer, that they just kind of start ignoring it. So stability stacking or evasion spreading, stuff like that, they just kind of ignored it, which is not great. It's called squelching. It's when common squelching primarily comes from tabletop, where a game master just ignores a player character's ability and says this works anyway, usually to the detriment of the player. So, like, that's not great design.
Yeah, I definitely think that would have to be addressed, but I don't know. I think ultimately it's definitely check out that Reddit post, or voice your your,
if you have fractal feedback, give it.
and try to also, because I know it's easy to always have your list of what you hate, but also throw out what you liked. I mean, because that also, from a human psychology's perspective, is I think a lot more people are willing to look at a negative thing if there is some, like, hey, I like what you did here, here, but this thing is but if you're like, this was crap, change this, blah, blah, it's like, then they're like, ugh. You need to tease the people. You need to be like, hey, good job here, try better here, but good job here, like. And if you do like it, that means they'll want to put more of it in. So,
yep.
As long as it's not change out your skills for some other random skills.
Like being a dolphin.
Yeah. What a horrible idea.
I know, it's fantastic.
But yeah, so moving from fractals to the strike mission stuff. I know Mighty Teapot put out a YouTube video. I think it was a pretty short one. I think it was like 4 or 5 minutes. So I think it's definitely worth to check out. And of course, if you're watching this on YouTube or whatnot, we'll have a link to the Reddit description that also has the video. But if you also want to have a discussion there, people are having discussion back and forth. Um, but like I said, it's not like a 20-minute video or an hour-long video that's kind of going in circles. It was kind of quick, short and quick and to the point, I think. But I think Teapot was basically saying that he sees them as a development feature, lots of potential, since we do know that there's supposed to be an evolution to the boss throughout the living story. I think his hopes were, since we haven't really got any confirmation of it, maybe one every living story update, ideally. And does have unique, or does have mechanics, even though and I think we were talking about this last week, there are mechanics there. It's not on the level of the starting raid thing, raid boss, but it is supposed to be a slow roll into it. There is rewards. They go into some of the data mine things that were there. We tend to not delve into data mine because that is kind of throwing out, it's everything's always subject to change, but apparently there is code for supposedly challenge modes, since it kind of goes with what Fractals was saying of people like the challenge modes and stuff like that. So maybe there's an eventual thing, or I know a lot of people's complaints are like healing's not a big issue, at least in this fight. I think in the video he even thinks that it won't really be a necessity in the normal mode, which is kind of it instantly forms a group, but maybe in the more structured version. But I mean, I'd like to hear your guys, your thoughts, and also chat's thoughts on what are your hopes for the strike missions. And I think we've talked about this in the past, and I think he even hits upon this, is I know one of my hopes, at least, if I'm gonna give a little time to think, but like I said, I think Teapot hit upon it, was I know this whole idea of the living story, like progression of the boss itself, and I think a lot of people are worried or thinking that it will always replace it, especially since they're saying it's going to evolve. It's going to replace it with a new one and make it slowly harder and harder and harder till it, I guess, takes you into, you can try raids now. I personally hope that they don't do that. Maybe the max rewards or something, or the best rewards, are going to be from the toughest version of it, but you could still run the epilogue version of this boss. You can run the chapter 1 version, or episode 1 version, the episode 2, whatever, however they're organizing it. Mainly because for me, they're going to run into the same issue that we had with story for Living Story Season 1. You can't play that. How is this going to ease people into it if they're not there day one? That's my biggest concern, is it. And I'm sure they're going to do multiple of these around the world throughout other things, but I don't know. I think it would be a nice selection if you were able to be like, what version do you want to see? The epilogue version, or, what have you? Would be a good way to continually later on bridge people into the raiding scene instead of.
Well, my problem, if you're talking about like slowly, like Pokemon evolving this thing into more and more of a fight, I kind of look at it like maybe the prologue version of this fight isn't all that they wanted to do with it. And they kind of just want to ease people into the idea of it first, and then they hope that the community will look at other people and be like, what the heck's a strike mission? And they'll be like, let me show you. Or at the very least, there will be veterans who actually enjoy hopping into the like random throw together team version of strike missions, that they can just kind of carry people until they figure out what the mechanics are. K-Fizzle, it's not so much about trying to force people to like raids. It's more to give people a taste of what raiding is. This is a breadcrumb. Boon and blasting. Honestly, there needs to be some kind of combo system. There is no intuitive way other than figuring it out yourself or looking at the wiki as to the combo field system. And I hate that because I love the combo field system.
And yeah, if you're not a fan of the raids, I don't think this is to hopefully convince you to raid. But I think this is maybe for people that want to try it, but maybe, and I think like Teapot says, the big R word of raiding. It's like people have those preconceived notions of it. I mean, it's kind of funny that because they're using strike missions as introductory or leading up to raids. You know, they're trying to deliver us expansion like content without an expand like I mean Destiny 2 is now called an MMO if you go to their page, but when they were under Blizzard Activision, they weren't allowed to call it an MMO. I remember when they were launching, they had to actively go, no, it's not an MMO. It has MMO like features, but it's not an MMO.
It's a live service.
Well, but no, they actually refer to their thing on the website now as an action MMO. ESO, they don't have expansions anymore. They have chapters. It's just changing that vocabulary changes the mindset, changes the expectations. But
QED, I'd never ban you.
But I would. No, I'm kidding. I'd have to figure out the command for it, and that's too much.
And
don't make me work, people.
I've talked a lot about breadcrumbs before, and that's why legendary weapons require you to go into WW. It's why there's stuff that points you into PvP. It's why you get the notification when you unlock reward tracks. So the whole point is to be like, hey, this is kind of sort of what raiding is like. You got 10 people, you have a big boss, you have mechanics that are different. Like, it's supposed to kind of give you an idea and make you want more if it's something you like. It's not there to force people into raiding. It's there to let them know that raiding exists. Honestly, QED, if there was some kind of in-game advice for how to do a thing, that would be great. But I could also say read your tooltips, because a lot of the raid bosses can be beaten by reading their tooltips. So, like Veil Guardian, for example, to take the first raid boss, Red tells you that it takes drastically reduced damage from direct attacks, if I remember correctly. So it basically says you must use condition damage. And I don't know, like build advice, just playing the game and actually turning a kind of like, okay, you got to figure out how things layer together. If you can't, honestly, I look at it this way. If you can't figure out a decent build, like a halfway decent build for, I know Red is the Condi form torment. I'm fairly certain the tooltip on its buff bar for like the color red on it basically says it takes drastically reduced physical damage. They even give you a dummy version of it leading up to Veil Guardian in order to, give you the idea of like, hey, I'm in a full Zerker build with like max power damage and I'm dealing 10 on a crit. I think I actually got like 13 or 14 when I got my might stacked up on that one on my elementalist build, which I thought was fun. But I don't know, like tooltip reading and other general gaming stuff, like read. And that's one of the biggest problems I always seem to have. And that's why, like, honestly, one of the biggest problems I had Wednesday when I was in the labyrinth farming trick-or-treat bags, there were people using knockbacks on the mob fight doors. And I'm seeing candy corn golems go flying as a Mesmer uses Greatsword 5, and I'm just like,
and you're like, we need to kill that. There we go. Next year, Halloween event, knock all these candy corn minions off the cliff of the labyrinth.
Except you can't knock NPCs off the cliff.
True. Yeah.
I know, QED, but that's just the game in general. And honestly, the problem is you learn what your abilities do by clicking them and looking at what they do. So even still, you can get an idea. It's like, oh, longbow 4 on a ranger knocks a target back. Huh. You may not know that it knocks a target back farther the closer they are to you without reading the tooltip, but you at least get a rough idea. But I don't know, asking for situational awareness in higher end PvE content seems to be, I don't know.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm hopeful for strike missions, and like I said, and I think even like I said, Teapot says in there is, I know a lot of people are judging it from literally the prologue release of this is the general idea. Like, I'm curious of when it's all said and done, what's it going to be like?
Yeah, well, then they've also said that the prologue version of this fight is a toned down version of this fight.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, I mean, and going back to what I was saying before is the game was kind of supposed to be designed of they didn't want you constantly staring at your bar, and there's positives and negatives to that. I think that's one of the negatives is people don't have to read their skills, or it's not as threatening, especially open world. It's
Good God, I cannot comprehend getting through the game just auto attacking. That would be so unbearably boring.
Has Wooden Potatoes done an Iron Man challenge like that where you can only auto attack all the way through? Because I know he's done multiple. Well, lots of people have done multiple ones, but
like I remember playing a Dagger Elementalist just because I thought it was really goddamn fun because of all the movement skills. I cannot fathom simply auto attacking.
But I don't know. Like, I mean, like I think at this point it's just a wait and see, because I think people are jumping to conclusions if they're already judging the strike mission. Like,
no, I will say to kind of put a cap on this and maybe bring it up for after show. People doing that auto attacking stuff, that's a you can lead a horse to water issue, not necessarily a problem with the game.
Yeah,
but I'll leave it at that.
Buff Ranger short.
Hey, if you want to just auto attack stuff, just make sure you do it from beside or behind.
There you go. Well, speaking of behind, someone at former arena devs leaving us behind. Oh,
Here,
I don't know how I was really going to get to it. That
you managed it. It's cool.
But this past week, Julia Narden announced on Twitter that her last day at Arena was on Tuesday. For people that aren't aware, she joined ArenaNet in October of 2018. She was a story editor, and I think it's on like she I think was listed as a story editor from October 2018 to October 2019, but was also given the narrative lead on May 2019, and then led that into the end of her stay on October at ArenaNet. But she did say that she's now she's going to actually be a narrative lead at Bungie for Destiny 2. So, I mean, awesome. And I know the sad thing is I know a lot of people were weirdly even more super worried than, I would say, at least some people were more worried than Mo leaving, or but
Well, if people like where the
maybe
story
it's
is
because
going.
maybe it's because she was one of the people on stage announcing like all the cool stuff, you know, story wise that they were doing, and then she, you know, what sounds like got a job offer, and you know, I know a lot of people are like super worried about it. I don't want to like discredit the work she did. A lot of the stuff that they were talking about sounded cool, but I'm sure it was something like, you know, it could have been a multitude of reasons. Maybe better location where the studio is, Bungie Studios. I don't know. But it could also have been maybe she's into sci-fi more so than fantasy, and it's like a dream for her. Like, oh, I could work on a sci-fi story, and it could also just simply be maybe Bungie's paying her better. I don't know, but
That's a good point, Mofongo. That season 4 was going well.
I mean, though she started in October 2018, I'm curious how much of season 4 was already written out. Like I said, and I don't want it to make it sound like I want to discredit her. I think, like I said, I don't think there's one taking one person out of the equation. I don't think would ever feel like a linchpin. It could feel like a little bit of a hurt or something to it, but I mean, we still have plenty of narrative people there. Like, I mean, the two big names I can think of, you know, Tom Abernathy, and now I'm blanking on his name and I feel really bad. He's been there literally forever. Why am I blanking on his name? Bobby Stein. Yes. Thank you, chat. And also who was the other person that was working on or was up on stage talking about the story during the talk? Because she was talking about the char, I believe. But you know, she was still working there. I mean, there's still people there.
It's clear that they have people.
Yeah.
It would take, honestly, if the restructuring handed down to them didn't sink the ship, one person leaving isn't going to.
That, and I'm curious because, like I said, I looked at their their page, and they list themselves as a story editor from October 2018 all the way to October 2019, but also as a narrative lead from May 2019 to October 2019, which I'm wondering if, like, when the whole shift happened around, they were like, we're going to make you a narrative lead. You're still going to do all the stuff as a story editor and the narrative lead. Like, basically, like what companies like to do is, hey, we're going to put more responsibility and probably try to pay you less. I mean, I don't know about the situation with the ANet. I just know from experience with other places where how much can we get away with
personnel and consolidate roles.
Yes, which I'm wondering, and this is all speculation, of course, if maybe she was also as a narrative lead at Bungie for Destiny 2, she's just going to be the narrative lead and not so much. And I know the story editor works with the narrative lead, of course, but I'm sure they probably are more, you know, have to do other stuff, you know, setting up stuff and all that stuff. But I'm wondering if, yeah, it was one of those situations where they tried to get more out of them per person, and then she just found a job where maybe she gets paid the same for doing less tasks, or getting paid, you know, paid more for the same amount of tasks, or because that's all. And I've talked about this in the past with other people that try to do that stuff. I'm like, you got to be careful with that, because if you try to equip people with more skills, if you're not willing to pay them more for their skills, if they're starting to look other places, they're like, wait, they're doing the work of 2 of our roles and getting paid less, whereas I can probably pay them 10,000 more and they'd be happy with doing that amount of work. They're getting 10,000 more, a year or something, and I don't have to pay 2 people. Like then the next company's winning out even more.
Yep. And
so that's always the danger. And once again, I don't know if that's the situation, but
well, Mofongo brings up a point that she's been a fan of Bungie and always wanted to work for them. So this seems like a dream job situation.
And that was one of the first things I was saying before was maybe this was like maybe she's always been more into sci-fi or something like that. So yeah, awesome. It's
good.
So I wish her well. I can't wait to find out what she gets to mess around with in Destiny 2, because I don't know if you heard, but the moon's haunted.
Loads gun. Moon's haunted.
But yeah, next up we have I wonder how many developers have never played their own game.
I would honestly have to say 0.
I was gonna say, I'm sure they've played it. Do they play it on a regular basis?
Like for leisure?
That
different.
might be a little bit lower because, I mean, whatever you do at work, do you go home and just do more work, or like? Because I'm sure a lot of people try to separate themselves from their work when they get to go home. Or if they're very passionate about it. I mean, we've heard in the past people doing side projects and.
Then there's me. I come home from developing at the office, and then I do development work for my wife's boss. So, and then one of the Minecraft guys I subscribe to on Patreon is doing a Let's Mod series, and I'm going to be working on Minecraft modding, if only to make sure I keep my Java stuff up to date. And it's like, yeah, I program at work, and I program at home, and I program in my sleep, and I program in the shower in my head. But and you're right, Mofongo, and that's a problem my wife has, because she works at home. Her desk is right there, and if I don't come home and like take her out of the house, she kind of goes a little stir crazy. So,
well, and that's a lot of reasons why a lot of better companies about that, of working at home type things, will say no. They usually have requirements of, we want it to be a separate room, a separate because they don't want you ideally mixing that, because you're gonna start going crazy and start maybe begrudgingly hating it or just not putting in as much effort. And it goes the other way of, they're also worried that if it does meld with personal life, you might be sitting at during your working hours and going, hey, you know what, I gotta pick up milk or something. Like, it goes both ways on that spectrum of So yeah, I think that is important, but we're kind of straying from that stuff. But yeah, in the end, can't wait to see, because I know I'll be playing Destiny 2 on Stadia when it comes November 19th.
What's a Stadia?
It's the future.
It. I sure as shit hope it isn't the future.
It's you buy stuff, but you don't physically get it. Kind of like the gem store.
You don't technically own it.
Yep. Speaking of the gem store, we do got some new stuff. You can currently pick up a free Hallows Fortune fireworks, which is free, will limit 1 per account. But some of the new stuff, and once again, thank you to, was it Majestic Noodle, for the video. You can see here, this is the skeletal wing backpack glider combo, and it is 700 gems. And like we said, it's a backpack and also a glider skin. Unfortunately, you can dye the glider, you can't dye the backpack.
Really good necro set.
Yeah, it does look really nice. I mean, it actually looks like bat wings or something because it has like the claws coming from the wings type thing, and
Proper particle effects and everything for the meshing with most base necro skills.
mm-hmm.
I am
Definitely.
disappointed that they still haven't given us any kind of fix to back pieces like that, but
Yeah.
I can't say that's I sure as hell don't think that's really on their priority list. But
I mean, would you recommend picking this up? Maybe if you're a Necro main that is rocking that aesthetic.
honestly, yeah, the glider backpack combos are pretty solid for most of them.
Yeah,
Even
they
the
do
the
tend to
default
transition
skin
nicely if you're using both of them at the same time,
that
except for
and
the dying. If you
well,
die.
honestly, a lot of them the color is still really good. The one that I don't
Yes.
like the color of is the Shining Blade backpack because I don't like where the like I wish that the metal dye channels were flipped on the back piece, or I'd use it
Yeah.
for the Shining Blade backpacking glider. But most of them, if you just use the default colors, if you just like use the dye remover tool and go back to the default colors for the glider, it matches the back piece and it looks really good.
So yeah,
So,
pick that up for 700 gems if you want it. That's the only new gem thing, but there was an update to the Black Line chest for Halloween. And with the Black Line chest comes a new weapon collection, which is the Seven Reapers weapon collection. It is, I believe, one ticket, so it is tradable on the trading post if you do want it that way, if you want a guaranteed way of getting it. Oh, that's, well, actually, before we get to that, the one thing from the Black Line chest that is a uncommon drop is the Searing Chain gloves, which you see on the arm or on the hands of the character right there.
why can't we have an unarmed warrior spec?
I know. Tell me
That would
about it.
be perfect.
I
That
agree.
would be so cool.
But yeah, so you, like I said, that's an uncommon chance in there. Now that is not really tradable. That's, luck of the draw, unfortunately. But like I said, maybe while you're trying to go after that, you get some Black Lion claim tickets for some weapons, which you can see them cycling through here, which is the Seven Reapers collection displayed. But I do, I like the gloves. I don't know who I would use them on. Like that's always been my problem. Is I like the skins and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's just who would I put it on at this point? But
These weapons are kind of cool.
yeah, they look nice. They're very aesthetic to kind of like the Doom
Yeah.
itself. We were talking about his shoulders earlier.
I like the gloves, mister. They look cool. I would actually gladly use them on, like, if I did one of my elementalist, I would use that.
Maybe I'd have to, if I do get them, maybe I'll have to revisit my Abaddon look of him being shackled.
I have to approve of this set because they actually made me like the rifle. I thought the rifle looked good. I always think the rifles look like crap. The Warhorn even looks like you could beat someone with it because it's got all the spikes coming off of it. Yeah. Shield's good. Then again, like it's really hard to screw up the shield because the shield you really have all the space you need to display it properly.
Now you can screw up a shield. You can put a Quaggin in it.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
I'm kidding. For whoever who did that, it's a beautiful shield. It's just I hate Quaggins.
You know, I was thinking about Shushidu the other day. Actually, it would be really cool if it had just been like a super fancy pearl weapon. Like if it was just like they took the themes of the pearl weapon set and actually made it look legendary quality. Like you can get
what if part of
stuff.
what if part of the like legendary, like afterwards you could sacrifice pearl weapons to it, and it put like more decorations in the fishbowl.
I don't know. I don't like the idea of it being a fishbowl because then it feels more like it's an oversized focus than a shield. But
True.
that's me.
But there is one perk. If you are a engineer, you get to throw it. You get to throw the quaggin. Granted, it doesn't. I don't think the skin carries with it, unfortunately.
Toss me.
Otherwise, I would probably make it for that reason.
Don't tell the elf.
Yeah. I'd rather use a real quaggin as a shield. Exactly. It's probably absorbs hits too because it's so fleshy. Anyway, I'm now taking it down a dark path. But speaking of dark path, I agree. These Reaper's weapons look pretty nice. I think some of them are a bit over the top, but I think that's to be expected. But I do see the rifle. I agree. That did look really nice.
Like, I was just kind of shocked that I actually looked at the rifle and didn't think it looked like garbage. I'm actually kind of disappointed because I'm trying to make use of a rifle on a power build for my warrior. And I've found that I like the Beast Slayer weapons a lot. The Beast Slayer rifle is one of those minigun looking things, and I hate those.
Oh.
So.
But yeah, also in the blackline chest, like I said, along with the, as you're seeing here, the searing chain gloves, you can also get the golden talon longbow, which has been in there prior, some MAAD realm weapon collection weapons, some rare stuff, the Shadow of the Mad King weapon set, the Blood Madness weapon set, the Glyph of the Forester, and the Glyph of the Watch Knight. Maybe while you're trying to get all these, you're getting blackline statuettes. Apparently, they did do an update to them as well. They added additional selection of die kits, which are the ones in the statuettes still random, or
Probably.
if they're still random, I still would probably say.
If you want to give me if you want to give me a minute, I can check.
Okay, yeah. As long as you don't have to buy it, maybe chat knows. But also in there is the exclusive Grasping Phantom Glider mini spooky mounts pack, and that's minis, not don't think that's the actual mount pack. The Envoy Scythe staff skin are currently available, so if you want past Blackline chest rewards from past Halloweens, that's your opportunity to use some statuettes. Additional items including the Toxic Mantle, Toxic Gloves, skins, Soul River Soul River Glider. So hey, a lot of people have wanted that in game. I know as a raid thing, but Phoenix Glider, Bubble Glider, and a selection of travel toys have been added. Miniatures for a limited time. Miniatures from the scary category are available for one Blackline claim ticket each. So. Yeah, mister. We talked about it earlier, which we can even talk about it again during after show. But yeah, we talked all about it. Which, if there is a new development,
no, damn, it's the one of. Oh wait, they do have some exclusive ones. The Toxic Die Kit.
But I mean, are you able to choose them or?
No, they're all random.
So yeah.
It's all random, and they're 5 statuettes a piece. Yeah.
Thanks.
That's garbage.
Yeah, I would probably look to. I know the Envoy Scythe staff. A lot of people like that when it first dropped, so I'd probably look to that kind of stuff more so than turning your statuettes into a chance at a die that you might like, because it might be a common die. It's those die kits are still. The random ones are still, not recommended.
The Envoy is 60.
Okay, well, that'll take you a pretty penny, but, instead of getting 12 random die kits, pick up an Envoy Scythe staff.
Yep.
Oh, see, Chad had apparently 650 statuettes sitting there, so nice. Glad to hear. Yeah, like I
go.
said, I think that was one of those ones that when it came out, people were like, I need to get this. So I'm glad that it's not just crammed in there with all the rest of the Blackline chess stuff, and they gave you a definitive way. But yeah. Any other thoughts on Gem Store?
It's Halloween Gem Store stuff.
Yep. Last up we have Community Corner, and I know we've talked about it in the past. It's the person on Reddit that was trying to make a Dolphy-like website. I think we were talking about last week or the week before. I don't remember, but it was gw2fans.net. They did post another thing saying that they do have a guide for the Shadow of the Mad King. I don't believe it includes the 2 weapon things that we were talking about earlier, that you have to go to the eat the certain food and stuff. I don't think it included that unless they updated it. But they are open to feedback if you are at all, if you want to provide any, or if you have any concerns or anything. I do have to say, it is a lot lighter weight than Dolphy's tended to load, but I think that was just with age, a lot of things that piled into it. So definitely would recommend it if you need a little bit of a guide, maybe to get the pumpkin crown helmet thing. But yeah, let me throw in the Reddit post. That way, if you do have any concerns, you can throw it in there. And once again, if you're watching this on YouTube, links are in the description. I know we were talking about Snow Curls earlier. Their website, they have a gear optimizer and website update. So the website has been updated for the current balance patch. All builds, benchmarks, team composition, and guides have been updated. They do have their gear optimizer set up, where you can basically choose things like offensive role or healer role. You can choose if you want to go dual wield or 2-handed weapon. Kind of a lot of stuff to narrow it down to maybe figure out what would be the most optimal build, that you want to achieve. So definitely cool. Also, Chronicles of Tyria, their summer short stories, has officially ended. I believe they were ending on the 19th, but they did have one, among other stories, but they did have another one this past week where they had another Guild Wars 2 community writer publish a short story over there. I don't think there's any news on a new episode dropping.
Haven't heard anything
Or
yet.
are you saying which one do we think? Maybe I'll go with 12th if that's the 2 options. But also today, Gamers Giving Back, Pink Day in LA. Basically, I think it's happening right now. They are gathering in Lions Arch to kick off events. You can join in on their NA TeamSpeak. Let me put in the Reddit information if you at all want to join while it's still live, or maybe you're catching this a little bit later on the VOD on Twitch or something like that. If you donate at least $10 Canadian or more, you're entered for drawings of prizes. Also, another thing that was today, which I'm sure it's probably ended by now. Maybe Chow will have to update me since I wasn't able to view the ending of it, but the Beetle Champions League, the final race was happening on today, October 19th. And it was a custom racetrack in a guild hall. And I know last time I went there, or when I had to switch over, they were on their second race, but I think they had to switch it because of the instancing thing fluctuated. But I think they had like a technical issue with that. So I don't know if chat knows who won that. Otherwise, we'll probably say next week. But I know the first race was won by, I believe, Shadow. What's that?
It's the biggest problem I have with the guild hall system. They want to have this expansive system that lets people, share their creations. It's just like, oh, we have to go to an expanded instance.
Well, and the funny thing is, I don't know if, because I was bouncing back and forth, but wow, my voice is going. They had a strict rule to not have other guildies come in, so it would do that. But I think the Guild Wars 2 account, I don't know who was running it, but it was like, oh, let me hop in. And I think they triggered it. So whoopsie. But yeah, it was a little bit of an oopsie, but technical difficulties to be expected. But yeah, it seemed fun. It was a fun little event. It reminded me of the stuff that we used to try to plan, and more grandiose scale, of course. But also, remember the Guild Wars 2 Rating League Season 1 announcement? 2 leagues, gold and silver. The registration for both leagues have already started, going till October 26th. And then it starts the following week on October 28th and finishes on December 15th. And registration will be on their public Discord, which, if you're at all interested, the links are there. But I actually didn't watch any of it. Yeah, I know it was on at least the English one was, or English speaking should have been on, was it Roy _ if I'm not mistaken? Yeah. But I think it might have ended already. But yeah, it was pretty cool to watch. I mean, it didn't have like as nice of falling around things because it was all using of in-game stuff. But I think he was flying around on his Griffin and kind of gliding to try to get pretty good views. But yeah, also the rating league there. Also, we talked about it last week, the 14th King and Queen Harroween Glaive's Revenge, which will be held on the 26th of October. It is for EU servers, and I don't want to get too much into the plot, but it seemed pretty cool. Like, as thorough as they were, I was like, is this a Guild Wars 2 event that I was like, why is it on the forums and not, a blog post or something? But they, fear not if you are an NA person. They do say you could make a free account for EU, and anything you win, they could mail to your NA account and stuff like that. Or there are going to be, I think, things you can win in chat, like on their, Twitch or where they broadcast it. But yeah, definitely check it out. But anything you want to elaborate on Community Corner?
No, it's just great to see all this stuff happening with the community.
Well, that looks like that is it for this week. So, Jim, where can they find you?
I can be found on Twitter at MalthanusMMO. You can also find me here on twitch.tv/MAADrealms. That's 2 A's in the MAAD every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern time last week I did Labyrinth Farming. The week before that, I was playing Core Warrior in PvP, which was weird. It felt weird, but QED gave me a really good build, and it's really fun. So, yeah, there's that. Maybe I'll be doing more of that once the ranked season spins back up again. I decided to hop back into ranked like a week before it ended, so, good on me. But I hope to see you all on Wednesday.
Awesome. And you can find me at simply_Deo on Twitch and Twitter, but more than likely for Twitch, usually here at MAAD Realms. 2 A's in the MAAD. If you are just popping to the very end, do stick around. We'll probably do a bit of an after show. I know people got stuff to do. Probably want to go grab some food or something, but we can talk about the banning thing again during after show. But yeah, if you want to make it out to the live thing, we go live Saturdays at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. We do go live a little bit early for a pre-show and stuff like that, so if you want to just hang out and chit chat. But we do highlight it on Twitch, twitch.tv/MAADrealms. But if you have a preferred method of YouTube, it goes up on Sundays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. That's youtube.com/madrealms. If you want it on one nice little cozy package, we do have a website, madrealms.com, 2 A's in the mad, where we also do have the audio version of the podcast and also other things that we do, like our Warframe podcasts, past episodes of Vote to Kick. But yeah, I'm really excited for the Warframe podcast. If you're here for pre-show, we are already gushing about all the possible things that might be coming next week. But yeah, we'll talk about that all on Tuesday. But yeah, that is it for this week. We'll see everybody next time in the game. Bye, everybody.
Bye, friends.